achieved.
One of the most interesting aspects of mixed martial arts are the fights that don't happen. They never materialize for one reason or another. They're potentially booked, injuries happen, things come up. Maybe they never just come together at all. This weekend we're getting a matchup that was certainly in jeopardy of becoming one of those fights. Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier 2 for the light heavyweight title. Not the circumstances everyone expected it to be, at least after the first fight. But after multiple fights falling through and all the issues that Jon Jones has had in his life, we are within a couple of days of getting to finally sit down and watch that matchup transpire. And I would say this is probably the best opportunity Daniel Cormier has to defeat him, considering Jon Jones is coming into this fight not in the most ideal of scenarios. Another fight on this card, obviously not as big implications or as big a legacy fight, but Cerrone versus Lawler, a fight the fans are clamoring to see. Has been canceled or pushed off a couple times. We're finally getting to see that matchup as well, fingers crossed. The Mayweather-McGregor fight, a lot of people didn't think it would ever come together. We're very blessed to see that opportunity. Whatever happens, it's still going to be a fun, exciting night of combat sports. And you look at Cris Cyborg, who's also fighting on this card. She was for a long time tied to Ronda Rousey as the super fight in women's mixed martial arts, and it's never going to happen now. And it's unfortunate because the build-up would have been fantastic, but all indications are we know what was going to happen in that fight. Cyborg was going to absolutely smash her. If Amanda Nunes put Ronda Rousey down like she did, and Holly Holm did what she did, Cyborg would absolutely murk her, and that's unfortunate, but still the build-up would have been very exciting. Speaking of fights that have to happen, or at least haven't happened yet, I'm still in pursuit of my opportunity to figure out, find out exactly what it's like to, roll with a trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. I've considered signing up at one of the local Jiu-Jitsu clubs. I just haven't got there. I've got a lot on my plate right now, some of the other things I'm doing. I fully intend to do it in the next couple of months and get going. I'd like to get a little better shape. I'm working on that as well. But my friend, who I'm currently, who's a blue belt, and is currently, I said, I just want to see what it's like before I actually go to the club and start doing whatever it is you do as a white belt for starting out. I just want to see, what it's like. I have a wealth of knowledge that I can draw upon, no actual physical application. And this individual continues to, hum and haw, but I think I'm getting closer to goading them into putting their money where their mouth is, if you will, and finding out what happens. See, I have a game plan, and unfortunately my first step of my game plan, of course, is based on MMA, was to break the guard using the can opener, but then, of course, I do a little bit of research, and I find out, that move overextends your arms and opens you directly up for a double armbar, which is really unfortunate because a double armbar would suck. But, we're back to the drawing board, but I've got a plan. And then when I do pull off the unthinkable, I'll be back on here to tell you guys. Enough of that, though. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I'm your host, Scott Johnson. And on this episode of the show, we're breaking down the upcoming UFC 214 pay-per-view, which will take place on July 29th, and hopefully feature the main event, the light heavyweight title, being on the line as the champion, Daniel Cormier, takes on the former champion, uncrowned champion, if you will, Johnny Bones Jones. All of my predictions will be available at Kamikaze Overdrive. No, all my predictions are available in this podcast. I'm getting ahead of myself. My preliminary predictions will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net, along with the bet packs you can pick up for $15. Cheapest in the business. I put a lot of work in. Hey, I don't always win, but I do my best. I've had a lot of success recently. I'm coming off a card where I pulled off several nice upset picks. Not enough, unfortunately, with Chris Weidman kind of crashing the party at the end of the night, but that's unfortunate. Now, as far as this show is concerned, and recently I've really struggled. I usually like to have my shows posted by Monday, no later than Tuesday. And the last couple of shows, I've been struggling to get them out by Wednesday, so I apologize for that, and thank you for your patience. It just seems I've been distracted of late and can't get my shit together, if you will, but for all the right reasons. So on that note, make sure you go to my website and check out the polls. They were kind of posted late. I want to, get in, pick who you think is going to win, vote on it, and see who the rest of the public's going to pick, and that's always fun. On that note, let's get to that first main card prediction. The opening fight of the night takes place in the UFC's light heavyweight division, and it features the third-ranked fighter in the division, Jimi, the poster boy, Manuwa, 17 wins and 2 losses, taking on the fifth-ranked Volkan Oezdemir with a very impressive record of 14-1, and he hails from the MMA hotbed that is Switzerland. Now, this fight is a product of the lack of the depth in the light heavyweight division. When you look at the losses of guys like Rumble Johnson, Phil Davis, Ryan Bader, that's a big... those three guys would easily be in the top 5. And considering Davis has never fought Cormier, never fought Jon Jones, Ryan Bader never fought Cormier, had a legitimate beef with Cormier, fought Jon Jones before he won the title, those are title fights that could have transpired that at least would have made sense. This matchup could lead to a guy challenging the title. I don't know how well it'll do as far as excitement. Obviously, Manuwa a bigger draw, but still. Now, Oezdemir took a very contestable split decision over OSP in his debut. A lot of people thought OSP won that matchup. He then KO'd Misha Cirkunov, which definitely hurt the UFC considering how hyped Cirkunov looked going into that fight. Just 28 seconds. So that's, 2 wins. Don't tell us a lot about him, but they're 2 wins nonetheless. For Manuwa, he has lost twice in his career against elite-level guys, Alexander Gustafsson and the aforementioned Rumble Johnson. He's coming off back-to-back knockouts of OSP, which I correctly predicted, and Corey Anderson, which I incorrectly predicted. So he's certainly, put a good run together as well to try and get here. Physically, Oezdemir 1 inch taller. Manuwa will have a 4-inch reach advantage, and Jimi is the older man by a sizable 9 years. Now, both guys have big knockout numbers. That's where the majority of their wins come from. Manuwa, 15 of his 17 victories have come by some form of knockout. For Oezdemir, 10 of his 14 victories have come by KO or TKO. Now, for Oezdemir, he throws very hard leg kicks. He came out tagging OSP early with those, low kicks. He's got a, decent head movement. He slips off to the side when he strikes, and overall, he's a decent striker. He throws a nice left hook, a pretty hard right hand as well. He'll move into the clinch to land short knees and punches, but he is a little bit hittable as he comes in. His head just drifts up a little bit higher, and I'd like to see it when you're moving forward. When he took out Misha Cirkunov, he was under pressure the entire time, and then as Cirkunov looked to close the distance to get into that clinch position that he likes so much, we saw Oezdemir just kind of slide off to the side and land a beautifully placed short right hook right behind his ear that dropped him and sent that fight to Bruce Buffer, if you will. So that was an impressive win, but again, it didn't tell us a heck of a lot about him. Now, one thing with Oezdemir, his takedown defense, the last time he lost was in Bellator, and a lot of it had to do with his takedown defense. Overall, he's shown decent balance, and that's something he can sprawl out of takedowns if he needs to, but at the same time, we've seen him get sucked into him. He hasn't really been pushed as far as takedowns are concerned in the UFC, and I don't expect that to be an issue here. On the flip side of things, he might look to take this fight to the ground and try and exploit what Jimi Manuwa has to offer on the ground. He's got decent clinch balance, fairly solid in that position when he wants to drag them down. Once he gets his opponent to the mat, look for him to, land some good ground and pound elbows. He can generate some power. He will mount in an advanced position, looking to really open up an opportunity to finish the fight. Now, another big issue with Oezdemir is his cardio. Obviously, he took a short-notice debut against OSP. And a lot of people, but if you go back pre-UFC, there are fights that show him slowing down in the second half of matchups. And that has to be concerning, because we didn't, against Misha Cirkunov, we did not get to see that. We got 28 seconds. It's flashy. It's fantastic. It looks great on your record. 28-second knockout of a highly respected prospect, but it doesn't tell us much about what he actually brings to the table in a fleshed-out fight. Now, for Jimi Manuwa, he throws exceptionally hard, and I love the way he digs to his opponent's body. He throws a nasty left hook to that body, and he can do a heck of a lot of damage. He uses movement. He's got very good kicks, and he has a variety of kicks, not just hard, low kicks. He'll throw a number of different techniques to really throw his opponents off. One thing he does, and he's very effective, he throws a wide left hook, and obviously it's meant to do damage, but it's also meant to corral them back into his power right. He throws a good left jab as well, really sharp, pops it out there. And honestly, when the preceding moments against Corey Anderson, he caught Corey Anderson with a very quick, snappy counter jab from the left side as Anderson pressed forward, put Anderson down to a knee, and kind of started that sequence that eventually led to the finish. A nice combination that Manuwa throws is that overhand right, left hook to the body. Boom, boom. And suddenly things start to open up because you don't know, what do I defend against? Do I defend against going high? Do I defend against him going to the body? It's very effective. He knocked out Anderson with a left hook. As Anderson was circling away, we saw, so he has power on both sides. From the clinch, he has exceptional knees and elbows in that position. He frames his opponents very well. He'll turn them out, use that forearm to frame, and then turn that knee over and drive it right into the... I punched the mic there, sorry. Drive it right into the midsection to just amplify the effect of that strike. It hurts them. It takes away their cardio, and once their cardio is taken away, we saw against OSP, they become a stationary target, and Manuwa closes that show in a hurry. Now, as I said, Manuwa can be taken down, and he needs to avoid getting put on his back in this fight. That's exceptional. We have seen him, and he did a very good job against Corey Anderson, controlling the center of that octagon, backing him up, getting his hips back on the shot, and just simply maintaining a very strong, simplistic defensive front, yet very effective. For my money, which usually is on the line, Oezdemir is still a little unproven in my eyes, despite 2 UFC victories that were pretty solid. He could opt to look for takedowns and a clinch-based attack to try and wear out Manuwa and avoid that power, but again, those clinch situations, Manuwa can turn them in his favor very quickly. I think the reach and power of Manuwa is going to be the big difference here. He remains technical. He's not going to rush forward and do anything silly like Cerrone did. He's going to look for opportunities to counter. He's going to look for opportunities to do damage on Oezdemir, and eventually, once some of those body kicks and those knees to the midsection and that nasty left hook to the midsection starts to pile up, Oezdemir's cardio is going to start to falter even quicker. He's going to slow down, and eventually that'll open up opportunities for Jimi to really go for it. Watch for the counters to land as Oezdemir pushes forward. That damage in the clinch is going to pile up, and eventually Oezdemir will slow down. My prediction is Jimi Manuwa to defeat Volkan Oezdemir by knockout. I still can't believe this fight is going to happen. Put the kids to bed. This one's going to bring all the violence, ladies and gentlemen, as the former welterweight champion, the third-ranked Robbie, the ruthless one, Robbie Lawler, 27 wins, 11 losses, 1 no contest, takes on the number 7-ranked fighter in the division, the former lightweight title challenger, Cowboy Donald Cerrone, currently holding with a record of 32 wins, 8 defeats, and also a single no contest. Now, this is a very big fight for both men, and for different unfortunately, for not the greatest of reasons, both men are coming off huge losses that slowed a ton of momentum. This fight was initially booked for UFC 205, but was rescheduled when Lawler wasn't prepared after his UFC 201 loss. It was then booked for UFC 213. Cerrone had some issues, had to pull out. Now we've got it here at UFC 214. We couldn't be happier. Please bubble wrap these guys. Do not let this fight fall under. Lawler lost his title at UFC 201 to Tyron Woodley not quite a year ago. He had won 5 in a row. He was looking so awesome since coming over from Strikeforce and dropping into the welterweight division, but that was a big, devastating loss. For Cerrone, he's coming off an equally as devastating loss to Jorge Masvidal. He was very close to a title shot. He had won 4 in a row since moving to welterweight, and that was his first loss since his title fight loss against Rafael dos Anjos in the lightweight division. And it was a brutal knockout that probably should have been stopped after the first round, but it is what it is. Interesting to note, Lawler, former middleweight, Cerrone, a former lightweight. Cerrone is 2 inches taller. Lawler will have a 1-inch reach advantage, and the Cowboy is a year younger than Robbie Lawler. Now, one of the scenarios we always discuss in situations like this is that post-title fight letdown for Robbie Lawler. He's returning to action in his first bout after losing his championship. And for a lot of guys, whether they lose their title or they lose in their attempt to get the title, that next fight is very difficult. They look at it and they say, here I am almost starting over again, trying to build myself back up. Do I have what it takes? Can I refocus? Can I get motivated to build that opportunity to fight for the title again? And sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's very difficult and they come out flat in their next appearance. Additionally, Donald Cerrone trains and is friends with Carlos Condit, a guy who also fought Robbie Lawler, and of course Greg Jackson's camp will have trained and prepared for Lawler already. So there's a wealth of knowledge there for those guys to draw upon when building a game plan for how Cerrone picks up the victory here. Now, looking at Robbie Lawler, we absolutely love the guy. He's a frickin' warrior. He's tough. He knows how to dig deep when other opponents start to wilt. He's been hurt in multiple fights. Carlos Condit hurt him. Rory McDonald hurt him. He was ultimately finished by Tyron Woodley, which brings to question whether the damage is starting to pile up. But either way, he's a guy who knows how to get things done and go for it. A couple things, though, with Lawler I'm not a huge fan of. He tends to shell up at times and try to roll with punches. We saw it against Johnny Hendricks. We saw it a little bit against Rory McDonald. And those can create issues, especially if opponents start piling up the damage and don't slow down, don't relent with their offense. We have seen Lawler at times have a little bit of issues with combination striking. Matt Brown had success hurting him with a nice combination. Rory McDonald, once he closed the distance and started letting his hands go, he really hurt Lawler along the cage. Punches, knees, kicks, just that variety of offense and didn't let up. He had Lawler in a lot of trouble. He was close to becoming the champion. Condit hurt him with an early combination in their fight, dropped him, had him in some serious trouble. And you saw some of the things Condit was doing that I think Donald Cerrone can emulate. Using kicks from the outside to keep Robbie out of boxing range where he likes to throw those strikes and let those power hands go. When Lawler's at his best, he's landing hard combinations. He looks fluid. He's doing damage. He's aggressive. He's coming forward. Against Carlos Condit, he was pressing forward constantly, but again, his movement was limited. His offense was limited. He wasn't throwing as much as I'd like to see him, and Condit was picking away at him and landing strikes. And I really felt Condit probably should have won that matchup. Lawler just wasn't doing enough early on. He dropped Condit with a counter right hand. Again, he's always looking for that big shot. And again, I don't like when fighters tend to rely on that big opportunity, that big moment. If it doesn't come, you're in serious trouble. Ultimately, though, he was knocked out by Robbie Lawler with a huge right hand. Covered ground quickly. Lawler got on top of him. And that's that thing. Woodley got on top of him. If Lawler isn't able to get that big moment and he's not flowing with his offensive output, guys like Woodley and guys like Donald Cerrone can put combinations together, put pain on you, and put you in a lot of trouble. Now, for Cerrone, we know what he's all about. Lethal Muay Thai. Hard kicks, combination striking. He's dangerous at range. He's dangerous and close. He can do it all. I love those hard knees. He throws an excellent push kick, low kick, middle, body kick. He throws a ton of offense, different techniques. And it's, again, those kicks that are going to set up opportunities to land other strikes. They're going to keep Cerrone, or they're going to keep Lawler on the outside, and they're going to allow Cerrone to do damage. You know, when he took out Rick Story, it was that brutal combination. You know, body, head punches, working over, eventually landed a head kick. Very accurate, very quick. Now, it's worth noting, in that matchup, Rick Story's a southpaw. So is Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler is a southpaw as well, which opens him up to that right high kick from Donald Cerrone. And when Cerrone took out Rick Story, the final 2 strikes basically were a left jab and that right high kick. As Rick Story tried to move away, boom, he walked right into it and put him down. You know, I like what Cerrone offers. He's quick. He throws a nice variety of strikes. We saw him have success against Matt Brown with it. He used those low kicks. He attacked the body. He just was keeping things varied. Now, at the same time, he has struggled with aggressive boxers. Eddie Alvarez had a lot of success early on. Nate Diaz had a lot of success in that matchup. You know, Rafael dos Anjos rocked him with the right hand, being aggressive, hurt him with the body, and eventually finished him. You know, Masvidal, an excellent boxer, put him down with a counter left-right combination, and that's, you know, ultimately, it didn't finish the fight, but it led to the end. Those guys were aggressive. They were in his face. They kept the offensive flowing, and they never let Cowboy get out of the gates. And that's something I think Lawler tends to do. He came out very strong against Hendricks in the second fight, but for the most part, he tends to be a little bit more patient. And I don't like that. I think he tends to be too patient. He sits on the outside looking to attack, and I think the kicks of Cerrone are going to cause him all kinds of problems. If Cowboy can slam a couple of those low kicks in, maybe go to the body once, and then look for that right high kick to land, I think Cerrone's going to use the longer attacks, those combinations, those knee strikes, that stepping knee down the middle if Lawler pushes forward. And again, eventually that right high kick's going to land. My prediction is Donald Cowboy Cerrone to defeat Robbie Lawler by knockout. Fight number 3 on the main card takes place in the UFC's women's featherweight division and will be the first of 3 title fights in the night, as the former Invicta champion Chris Cyborg, 16-1-0 with 1 no contest, takes on the triple threat, the debuting Tonya Evinger, 19 wins, 5 losses. Evinger, of course, the former Invicta bantamweight champion. These 2 fighters will be competing to be crowned the new UFC women's featherweight champion. Of course, Jermaine D. Rondami, who defeated Holly Holm. I correctly predicted that fight. Stripped of the title when she refused to fight Cyborg, which is very unfortunate. That would have been a fun matchup. She's gone back to bantamweight. Megan Anderson was initially taking on Cyborg here. She withdrew. Evinger steps up for the biggest fight of her career and gets an opportunity to go toe-to-toe with the monster that is known as Cyborg. Now, as I said, Cyborg, the former Invicta featherweight champion. She defended the title twice. She also held the Strikeforce championship before. She's fought twice in the UFC with catchweight bouts at 140 pounds against Leslie Smith and Lena Landsberg. Obviously, it seems like the temptation to go to 135 for that big money fight against Ronda Rousey is over, so I don't anticipate seeing any more catchweight bouts at anything below 100, and, you know, where she really has to stress herself to get down. As I mentioned, Evinger, Invicta bantamweight champion. She's had a couple catchweight fights in her career. She fought at 125 pounds. She's never actually, as far as the numbers concerned, I don't think she's ever fought at 145 pounds. She is undefeated in her last 11. She had a title fight loss that was overturned. She then subsequently won the rematch. So she's on quite a roll too, and she's deserving of this opportunity, I would think, even though it's on short notice. Now, Cyborg, she is 1 inch taller. Evinger has a 2 inch reach advantage, and Evinger is actually 4 years older than Chris. Now, looking at the Brazilian first, she has finished 12 straight opponents. Probably the reason 145-pound division is so thin, as fighters clamor to get down to 135 pounds to compete to avoid having to run into Chris Cyborg. She's a physical monster. She overwhelms her opponents with both power and strength and really puts them in a position where they just simply don't have any hope to hold up. And it's one of those things where people are like, oh my gosh, someone made it out of the opening round? That's fantastic. Power for her is everything. She throws power in everything. She can hurt opponents on the mat or on the feet. She just smashes people. She throws a beautiful left jab, right hook combination. Overall, she has good combos, throws hard leg strikes. She'll work to the body as well, and she will attack the head if necessary. But again, a lot of times it's just those hands, put them together, and opponents go down. We saw against Leslie Smith, she is willing to sit and exchange and just throw and hope, count on her chin and her power to get the better of you. She can also be very technical and sit on the outside and pick away. Against Smith, she just kind of threw her hands until Smith fell down. But you go back to that kickboxing matchup against Georgina Bars. Bars is an animal. She's an incredibly talented Muay Thai striker, and Bars hit Cyborg with everything. And Cyborg, stumbled a couple of times, but she kept coming forward, and that has to be concerning for a lot of the women here. Is how do you stop her? How do you stop her? When she fought Lena Landsberg, she was pressing her with early combinations, backing her up, clinch and knees, broke her down and finished her eventually with that power and that pressure. But again, you wonder, is she going to make a mistake at some point? Could she gas out? Those are probably two of the areas. She makes a mistake and walks into some kind of counter, strike, maybe gets clipped with a head kick. Maybe she gasses out and gets finished. I don't know in a later. But is Evinger the girl to do it? I'm not sure. Evinger overall 8 wins by knockout, 7 submission victories. She's 4-1 in decisions. She has 4 losses on her record by submission. She's never been knocked out, so that's worth noting. And she did attempt to get into the tough house with Raquel Pennington, who's a girl on a streak right now. Love Raquel Pennington. Pennington won by submitting Evinger to prevent her from getting into the house, so that's certainly a big setback for her. Evinger comes from a wrestling background. Her last defeat came against a very talented wrestler, Sarah McMahon. She also has losses to Alexis Davis twice over. Those were back in 2010, 2011, so it's been a while since she's been defeated, and it was against top-caliber opposition. Look for Evinger. One of her last fights, she threw some hard low kicks, really targeting the ankle, that lower half of the leg, which is a technique a lot of people are using very effectively. Jim Miller does it a lot, and I really like that. It can do a lot of damage and take away the stability of a fighter's base if they cannot, if you start taking damage there. Again, it was something that the announcers were kind of caught off guard. She's not known for her striking, but still, it's a wrinkle to the game she was adding. She actually dropped her opponent in that match with a quick left hand, immediately went for the takedown, which is her forte, rotated to the back, and started looking for submissions and ground and pound. She tends to throw wide punches, leaves herself exposed when moving forward, but ultimately she's looking to punch her way into the clinch up with her, tie up a leg, lace up that leg, and drag her opponent to the ground. And again, she's very tough to deal with in the clinch, but again, she's never been in there with somebody like Cyborg, someone so monstrous and physically dominating. If Evinger gets a fight to the ground, she's a good ground and pound. She's looking to break her opponents down for that TKO or open up submission opportunities. The big question is, how does she beat Cyborg? Will she be able to take her down and then keep her down? If she can't stop her after scoring that first takedown and the bell eventually stands them back up, can she repeat the process without tiring out? Can she do that for 5 rounds if she can't stop her? How does she go about winning this fight? Evinger is tough, but I think she lacks the overall striking skill to simply stand with Cyborg, and she's not going to be good enough to close that distance and get her hands on her. Cyborg's going to overwhelm her, look for maybe to land counter strikes as Evinger pushes forward, looking to close the distance, and my prediction is Chris Cyborg to defeat Tonya Evinger by TKO. In the co-main event of the evening, we have a matchup in the UFC's welterweight division featuring the champion, the chosen one, Tyron Woodley, 16 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw, taking on the number 1 ranked fighter in the division, Brazil's own Demian Maia, currently holding a record of 25 wins, and 6 defeats. Now, Maia is finally getting a title shot after 7 consecutive victories. He's 10-2 at welterweight. And to keep in mind, he fought Anderson Silva back at UFC 112 in 2010. For the middleweight title. That didn't go overly well. It was a very, very lackluster performance on both sides. But he's getting a shot here to redeem himself. And keep in mind, Demian Maia is considered to be one of the, if not the last, but certainly one of the last pure grapplers in mixed martial arts, at least competing at this level and challenging for a title. So he's kind of a throwback. It'll be interesting to see how he fares. Woodley is coming off a draw and then a very lackluster, very close victory over Stephen Thompson. Not great fights. A lot of people made a case that Thompson could have won one, if not both of those. He's going to come into this matchup wanting to put those fights behind him, wanting to put on a performance that raises his, raises his profile, because those fights certainly did not. Now Maia is 4 inches taller. He'll have a 2-inch reach advantage. It's 2-inch reach advantage for Woodley, the champion, and Tyron is 5 years younger. Now, Woodley, overall, there's an inverse connection recently between Woodley's ability to win fights and their length. He is 9-0 in fights that end in the opening round. Sorry, in fights that, and in the first 2 rounds, my apologies. But 6-3-1 in fights that go to the 3rd round or beyond. Now, that record has improved. It was 5-3 prior to the 2 fights with Stephen Thompson. He has improved. And part of the reason he got the victories in those matchups was because he fought smart. Not exciting, not awesome. He fought smart for what he's capable of. He knew he couldn't, he needed one opportunity to put Thompson away, but he knew if he gassed out, he would be in big trouble for rounds 3, 4, and 5. So he waited for his opportunities. It wasn't the most fun game plan. It certainly had holes in it, but it kept the belt around his waist. Cardio overall, though, for Woodley seems to be an issue if he is forced to compete, forced to push. He doesn't have the ability to deal with pressure at times when good strikers, and those scenarios go hand in hand. Woodley, a negative exchange rate or very close exchange rate. He's a guy who relies heavily on power. He has that one-punch knockout power, and he either knocks guys out, or as we saw in the Thompson fight, he hurts them to the point where he wins the round based on 1 or 2 very quick scenarios that allow him to get the victory. When he fought Robbie Lawler, he backed him up against the cage. He really limited his movement. He covered distance exceptionally well and put him down. And that's something that's the ideal scenario for him. He has a massive right hand, and he caught Lawler backing up, and he landed those massive strikes in succession on the mat to eventually score the finish. And that's that ideal situation for him. Launch forward, land that dropping blow, land that concussive blow, and walk away the winner. In this fight, Woodley, who comes from a wrestling background, is going to want to use that wrestling in reverse to keep Maia on his feet and away from his jiu-jitsu. He's going to want to keep Maia off the mat and take away that area where he is the strongest. If he can't stop Maia, with strikes at any point in this fight, can he land enough strikes to win rounds? That's a big question. Thompson fight was very close. Woodley needs to make sure he is active enough that Maia just can't push forward and land punches and kicks and look to grapple and just be a little more active and steal this fight as a result. Now, Maia's success in getting this opportunity has been 100% due to his refocus on his BJJ skills. And for the most part, his opponents have yet to find an answer. At welterweight, Maia has 4 submission wins. He has 20 combined takedowns over his last 5 decision victories. He either finishes fighters or he smothers them on the mat with his top game. He will pull guard, and he will attack or off his back or look for sweeps. Jake Shields was one of the few guys that was actually able to keep Maia on the mat. And it's worth noting, Jake Shields has victories over both of these gentlemen, not even that long ago, beating Woodley and beating Maia. I predicted him to beat Woodley, not to beat Maia. So that's impressive for Jake the Snake. Maia will look, if he gets the opportunity, whether he's standing or on the mat, he's always looking to get to his opponent's back and set up, whether it be in the clinch or on the whatever, set up an opportunity to set up that rear naked choke. He has 6 wins by RNC. He has a neck crank victory, which was gruesome over Rick's story. And that's something he will look for, especially early when these fighters are dry. He's going to try and close that distance, get his hands on Woodley, and get to that back position where a wrestler's not going to be familiar with that scenario and try to choke him out and take that title. Maia's striking is improving, but again, he's moved to the back burner to refocus on his ground game, and that's something, again, he might need to rely on his striking here, but he does not want to be trading with Woodley too often. The cardio of Demian Maia is not awesome. It has been an issue at times. He took McDonald down in 1 round 1, but gassed out. Against Ryan LaFleur, though, he took him down multiple times early. He was still tired and still able to take him down when he needed to score that victory. But ultimately, this fight comes down to whether or not Maia can drag Woodley to the mat. Woodley's strength and lower stature, I think, is going to make it very difficult. His speed and athleticism is going to make it very difficult for for Maia to get in on him. Masvidal gave Maia absolute fits. Maia had success, but it wasn't the wipeout we saw. And again, as we move up in competition, that's going to be the case. Woodley has that big power and can cover distance. He should have more luck doing it against a less skilled striker in Maia than he did against Stephen Thompson. Woodley's takedown defense is 91%. He's only been taken down a couple times in his career, and I just don't see Maia smothering him and picking up a victory like he has in the past. I think Woodley's going to defend the takedowns. He's going to force Maia to stand, and eventually he's going to land something big. My prediction is Tyron Woodley to defeat Demian Maia by knockout. And now it's time to move to the main event of the evening. The UFC's light heavyweight title will be on the line, and I don't want to say it too loudly just in case someone hears it and decides, hey, one of these dudes has got to get injured. But the champion, Daniel D.C. Cormier, 19 wins and 1 loss, will take on the former champion, the uncrowned champion, the number 1 ranked fighter in the division, Johnny Bones Jones, with a current record of 22 wins and 1 loss. His loss, of course, coming against the man, the myth, the legend, Matt Hamill. Daniel Cormier's 1 loss, of course, coming against Jon Jones. Now, it's about time we finally got to see this fight. And I'm not going to go into the backstory. I've already talked about it a little bit. We've heard it all before. It's time to throw gloves. That's all it is. Throw hands and see how this goes. The last time they fought was at UFC 182, which was in early 2015. Jones, of course, taking the fight by decision. Only 1 fight since for Johnny Jones. He's had a 15-month layoff coming in. All kinds of distractions and issues. For Cormier, he has fought 4 times since that fight, defeating Rumble Johnson twice, Anderson Silva in a short notice bout at UFC 200, and a split decision in a Fight of the Year candidate in Alexander Gustafsson, which was a great matchup. Who has improved more? How will the layoff of the non-MMA issues impact Johnny Jones? Is he better now that he's clean? Is he worse now that he's clean? Great question. We'll have to see. Physically, Jon Jones, 5 inches taller. He'll have a 12-inch reach advantage, and he's the younger man by 8 years. Physical stats all favor the challenger. Cormier is pushing 40. He's 38 years old. Jon Jones is 30. He's in the prime of his physical career. Cormier is at the end of it. Now, Jones versus Cormier won the first matchup. Their stats, Jones landed 92 strikes, Cormier landed 58, and Johnny Jones got the better of the takedown exchanges at 3-1. That was impressive. Cormier did happen to land more strikes than Jon Jones in 1 round, which was the 3rd round. He barely edged it out. Jones had the edge in rounds 1 and 2, not decisively. The big difference was rounds 4 and 5, Cormier was limited to single digits, and Jon Jones was up above 20 significant strikes, mixing a couple of takedowns, and that's how he walked away with this matchup. Not nearly as close as the Gus Jones fight. Jones came out in that first matchup throwing a lot of kicks and knees and attacking Cormier, looking to keep him on the outside. Jones caught a kick at one point, scored a takedown. Didn't last long, but certainly set a precedent saying, hey, I can put you on your back if need be. Cormier did what he does best. He pressed forward, looking to land strikes on the inside and really smother him. But Jon Jones, once Cormier did come on the inside, Jon Jones had a lot of success firing back his own offense. He's a very good clinch fighter in his own right. You know, where Cormier had a lot of success landing those uppercuts, you know, throwing combinations when he pushed forward, he tend to reach a little bit, but you have to against Johnny Jones to hit him. It limited the power, the impact of those strikes, seeing as they were the end of the techniques where they were connecting, not in the middle where the power is best generated. Still, Cormier was having some more success than a lot of people have had with hitting Jon Jones. Cormier did look to tie up, use that clinch, land short strikes, wear him down. It didn't really work for him. He was moving forward and pressing, looking to land more and more punches and offense, but again, it was something that just wasn't there. Jon Jones' takedown defense versus Cormier was impressive. He used his size and his length to really slow him down and smother those opportunities, really shut them down. And ultimately, Cormier couldn't keep the pace up. He kept pressing, but his success was dropping off. His corner was saying, I need more from you, and he couldn't give it to him. And he had that look in his face like, I can't do this. When he was on the stool, he faded and lost that fight because he faded. He could have lost that fight had he maintained what he did in the first couple of rounds, but at least it would have been much closer. Jones, ultimately fresher fighter in rounds 4 and 5, ground him out, controlled, land strikes, won the fight. Ultimately, Cormier thrives on breaking guys with takedowns and clinch pressure and constant flow of strikes. Jon Jones is dealing with a lot of ring rust and a lot of issues. Against OSP, a lot of people claim he didn't look that good, and maybe he didn't. You know, I felt he could have done a lot of things to finish OSP. I said he wanted to get in there and go 5 rounds, get the feeling back, get back in there and see, this is what I need to do to, shake off that ring rust, if you will. But if Cormier was ever going to do what he did to other guys and do it to Jon Jones, it's this fight. Push him early, tire him out, break him, make him regret coming back. Jones, though, has the size and skill to neutralize Cormier's strengths and land his own offense. Hurt him on the outside, tie him up on the inside, make him pay for wanting to close the distance. I have been very impressed with what I've seen from the motivation, the focus from Jon Jones in interviews, in the media. He looks ready. I feel like on the other side of things, there's a lack of confidence in DC, a lack of belief in himself. Anderson Silva talked about Cormier, how he doesn't believe in himself. He's almost scared, and he'd point at saying, here he's fighting Anderson Silva, an opportunity to trade with him, and all Cormier did was take him down and lay on him for 3 rounds. I get it. It was a dangerous fight to take, and he didn't need to take it, but, Anderson pointing out that he didn't want to stand with me, and when he did stand with me, he looked a little bit scared. And sometimes when you hear Daniel Cormier talk about, I am the champion, he lost his belt, you didn't take it from him, though, and there's a lack of belief. And he recognizes, I think, that this is a tough challenge, and if he loses this fight, he's 0-2 against Jones, and all the talk about him being one of the greatest light heavyweights of all time takes a back step to this younger, more accomplished, more capable fighter who put him down twice. I think Johnny Jones comes out in this matchup looking to make a statement. I think he's going to come out very strong. He's going to push Cormier, and I think this time he stops him. I'm anticipating he's going to land elbows along the cage, maybe land something concussive, and get Cormier in a lot of trouble. And I didn't like the way Cormier responded at times to being hit by Alexander Gustafsson, and I think Jon Jones is just that much further along with his finishing capabilities. Even though he's gotten a decision in multiple fights, the last guy he finished was Chael Sonnen. I think we're going to see Jon Jones come out and put it on him, and again, I think it's those elbows. We're going to see Johnny Jones hurt him on the feet and eventually get that fight to the ground from top position, put Cormier on his back, and as good a wrestler as he is, when you take damage and you're stunned and you're not in your right frame of mind, things unravel very quickly. My prediction is Jon Jones to defeat Daniel Cormier by TKO and become the new UFC light heavyweight champion. So those are my 5 main card predictions for UFC 214. All of my preliminary picks, as is always the case, will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. I'm exceptionally excited for this card. I'm looking forward to the pay-per-view. I can't wait to go and watch it. It's going to be a heck of a fun night. The prelims offer some interesting fights, and betting opportunities are certainly there. I'll be breaking down the bet packs and getting them posted as soon as possible. Make sure you go and vote in the public polls. Ben Heller's been doing a hell of a job, if you will, in the prediction panel, so make sure you check out his picks. He does a very good job. 67%, 191 wins, 96 losses in his 287 fights predicted. Very impressive for Ben Heller. Also, what else was I going to say? Follow me on Twitter, KO_predictions. I'm on Facebook as well. If you want to sign up there, if you can take the time to actually accept or sign up and follow me, that's always appreciative. And again, thanks guys for tuning in. I greatly appreciate the audience and everything else. So a couple fights left this summer. We're getting down to the end of it though, and then we get to the big show. I'm hoping to do some type of Mayweather-McGregor. Probably not a prediction show, but just talk about it in general. It should be exciting. Nonetheless, take care guys. Talk soon.